Jorge Diaz-Rullo has made the 5th ascent of Alex Magos's Bibliographie at Céüse. Magos made the first ascent of Bibliographie in 2020 with the proposed grade of 9C. However, after a repeat from Stefano Ghisolfi, it was downgraded by mutual consent to 9B+, which is still a pretty hard grade. This is Jorge Diaz-Rullo's first repeat of an established 9B+, having put up one of his own earlier this year. Diaz-Rullo now joins an exclusive club of repeat ascensionists, including the likes of Stefano Ghisolfi, Sean Bailey and Seb Bouin. Diaz-Rullo identified that bibliography was one of his 2 main objectives for this year. He'd had a trip to Céüse earlier in the year to see if he could do it, but had to come back this autumn to get it finished off. But the biggest project for him is Café Colombia, his potential 9C super project in Margalef. When we spoke to him in May, he'd already had 120 sessions on this project, and he had this to say about it. This last season, I came very close. I fell on the last crux 4 times. Although that last boulder problem is hard, I had a very good feeling when I got there. In fact, I felt much fitter than previous seasons than I'd ever been before. For me, Café Colombia is the next step up. So given the fact that he's just repeated bibliography, given how close he was earlier in the year, and given the fact that he's only 24 years old, we reckon he's got it in him this winter. We'll sign off this section by showing you his tick list from Margalef earlier this year, which is utterly mind-blowing. On the other side of the globe, in Yosemite National Park, 2 of Britain's top climbers, Alex Waterhouse and Billy Ridal, are attempting to free the nose. The nose was first climbed using aid in 1958 by Warren Harding and his merry band. It took 45 days over a period of 18 months to complete the ascent. In 1993, Lynn Hill famously freed that line, using the phrase, "It goes boys." Despite its place in history, and it being one of the best lines in the world on one of the most accessible big walls in the world, it doesn't have a long list of repeat ascensionists. Over the coming weeks, we're going to keep you updated and hopefully entertained with Alex and Billy's progress as they try to free the nose. Both Alex and Billy cut their teeth on the competition circuit, but neither are slouches outside of that. Both have climbed Font 8B+, Alex has climbed French 9A, Billy's climbed 8C+, but the one thing that's lacking from their resume is big wall climbing. But they're seeking to remedy that whilst learning how to free climb the nose. Let's check in on them now.
Nothing's gone massively wrong yet. Like, you went off route on pitch 2 because we didn't know where to go. And, well, we went to the bolt, which was the obvious thing to do. Right?
So, like, you'd expect the like climbing to follow the bolts, but the aid climb follows the bolts, not the free climb.
Yeah, I feel like we're in kind of a niche scenario where the climb we're on is much more set up for aid climbing rather than actually free climbing. So it's not like there's any chalk up there or anything.
And well, there's chalk on the like aid bits where you're like definitely en route, but the free climb differs pretty like more substantially from that than we were expecting. But I just quested on up because I assumed that was the way to go, and it wasn't. So I took a bit of a ride.
And he looked like he was doing great, so I wasn't like super watching you. And then
Billy dropped me as well.
No.
Welcome to Yosemite.
Yeah, it was a nice pitch 2 with like a couple of people just below us who were like, "Are you the guys that think you're going to try and free the nose?"
No, I don't know. If we see him, we'll let you know. Those guys sound stupid. It's really bad. What was it like to see El Cap for the first time? I quite enjoyed watching you as we drove in.
Yeah, I think there was probably quite a lot of expletives in that, but I mean, look at it. I think we were...
It's very exciting.
I think I was expecting to be totally overwhelmed by it, and
this is like, we drove in for the first time, it was like, wow, that's massive. We got closer, it's like, oh my god, it's getting bigger. It's like, I think we've been here almost a week now, and it's only just starting to like feel a little smaller as we've like got used to everything.
Yeah, but I think now that we've like been up a little way and like come down a little bit from the top, and we've got like a bit more perspective on how big it really is. And although, to be fair though, that's kind of made it seem smaller and bigger in equal measure, I suppose.
So whilst they are big wall novices, they are approaching this with their heads screwed on. They're approaching it top down to work on the 2 crux pitches. The changing corners pitch, which comes in at 514A, or in European terms, French 8B+, and the Great Roof Pitch, which comes in at 13C or 8A+. Although it's not just the difficulty of the climbing that's a concern, it's the difficulty of all the big walling faff and paraphernalia that goes along with it. Haul bags and hauling take their toll, and it's these sorts of things where getting your system dialed is key. So let's hope they got their systems dialed.
So going down off the top for the first time, it's like you go from basically the ground to 3,000 feet of vertical straight down, because the El Cap and the nose in particular kind of like starts off slabby, goes vertical, and then goes steep at the top. So when you wrap over the top for the first time, you're just like straight down to the ground. It's a pretty special experience.
And the very last pitch, like the first one that we abbed off, is like these big roofs and stuff that normally people just like do a bolt ladder through. But if you're abbing off, you just go straight into space, 3,000 feet up. I was like abbing off, like, oh my God, having to like swing back in to put some directionals in and stuff, like freaking out.
It is kind of a lot. It's funny though, because the exposure kind of, after that first ab down, every kind of like hour after that, the exposure would just tick down a little bit and tick down a little bit until we got down to Camp 6 and working changing corners for the first time. And it's like, we're sitting on the edge, sunbathing, like legs over the front, looking down, like, oh, it's a long way, isn't it? Total like perspective shift from coming down for the first time. So I maybe the exposure won't be that bad.
So changing corners it's still an epic to work, but basically you have to hike up to the top, which for us, not really knowing what doing, took us 6 hours with an enormous haul bag.
A totally unreasonable amount of stuff.
Like the most like ridiculous, heinous day, just walking up these ledges, like hauling up the wrap lines that people normally go down, like, people looking a bit confused at us. But once you get there, working changing corners is then not so bad, because we've got enough rope to just fix all the way down to changing corners, and then we can just work it on a top rope. But the other crux pitch, Great Roof, as you said, 20 pitches up, like
that's another 5 pitches down from that. So our current theory, or we keep flip-flopping back and forth, is to hike up to the top with everything, ab down to Camp 6, which is where changing corners is, and then for a day or two, ab down, fixing whatever hard stuff we can, and then working Great Roof for a day or two, and then coming back up to Camp 6 before climbing back out to the top. Logistics are
sounds like an astronomical amount of work.
Sounds like a lot of work. It sounds like a lot of work and a lot of gear and water to take up to the summit on that hike, but it might be the best.
But the alternative is to climb 2/3 of the nose just to work it, which doesn't exactly sound like an easy day out.
We are a little out of our depth. I think every day we kind of like, we're trying not to like push too many skills at the exact same time. It's like going up to the top and like fixing lines and ascending was a really good practice of that kind of like workflow. Adding a haul bag to that is going to be a whole nother like set. Going from the bottom and doing all the like, it's kind of trying to build the skills bit by bit, so we're not too like too out of our comfort zone. So it's like it's really cool to have this like massive audacious goal and like just go really hard at it and kind of not know what. Basically be comfortable with the fact that like there's a decent chance we don't do this year.
There's every chance that I'd come to Yosemite for 5 weeks and climb absolutely nothing.
I look forward to it.
But we'll have a great time in the process.
So stay tuned over the next few weeks for more on Alex and Billy's most excellent adventure.